Good morning, everybody. It is good to see all of you today. In Minnesota, it appears to be almost summer. So if you know me, you know that I am very happy about that. Good to see all of you this morning. I'm glad you're able to continue engaging online. If this is your first time engaging online with us, please know that we encourage comments or ideas or thoughts. We encourage you to share it throughout the time because this is intended to be a collaborative community where we work together to learn and to grow and to understand more about what God might really be saying in this crazy world that we're in right now. So, would you please pray with me? God, we ask that your spirit would help us to learn and grow so that we're always better representatives of what your love means. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And I guess I'm really a believer in that, if you didn't know that about me already, that I really believe there's always room to grow. There's always something that we could do better, that I could do better. And as we learn and adapt and grow in wisdom and grow in love, we're going to find things that we need to work harder on and deal with on. So last week I talked a little bit about the generational issues that my own family has experienced regarding women, regarding divorce and adultery and things like that. And so if you missed last Sunday, that's okay. I'll try to catch you up as much as I can in a very short period of time here so we can go a little bit further with this thought today because I really think, friends, I really think there's a whole generation of young people that are rejecting the teachings that they are told the Bible says for good reason. I really think we can do better. And I think we need to look really carefully at some of these passages that have been used to damage people and what they might be really saying in this world today. Some of these just don't translate well to our time. So let's look at this together today for just a little bit. I showed you this picture last week. It's one of my favorite pictures of my family. Right next to me on the screen is my mother, probably age 10 or 12. Next to her is her grandmother. And then next to that is my grandma Edith. And of course, that's my mom's brother, Russell, on the other end. But my Grandma Edith was a very brilliant woman who found herself single with three kids when my mom was not even really a year old. It just was an awful time. And because of that, she figured out how to make it in the world by pretending to be the employee of her father, but actually owning and running a chicken farm in which she sold eggs all over Laurel County in Iowa. I think it's Laurel County. I believe it is. But she figured out how to tough through a system that just did not work because at that time, it would have been the 1940s, she wasn't allowed to own a business or do things like that for herself. Even so, as tough as my grandma was, for all of her life, she carried the pain of having been divorced. Because at that time, the traditional, and I wanted to say this several times today, traditional and biblical are not the same thing. A lot. Okay. But at that time, the traditional beliefs of the Bible affirmed that she was less. And so, having been a woman who was divorced, she was even less than less. And she carried that pain and that shame really, truly for the rest of her life. And my mom did the same. When I was young, my mom also found herself alone with three kids on her own. And this would have been in the 1970s when it was a little bit easier for a woman to make it on her own with three kids, but it was not easy at all, even then. It's not easy now for any single parent to make it, okay? But at that time, she couldn't get a credit card. In fact, when she died a few years ago, many of the household bills that she still had were still in my father's name. She could have changed them, but she never did because my mom carried the pain and the shame, not only of having been what she perceived as rejected and deserted by her own father before she could even remember, and that she never really knew him much at all. and then by her own husband. She felt rejected and shamed, and she carried the shame of a divorced woman, which is terrible. But the way some people read and interpret the Bible affirms that, unfortunately. But I don't think that's what Jesus is saying at all in the passages, and I want to dig at it today. I want you to know that I don't say any of these things about my mom lately. I loved my mom so dearly. I can hardly talk about it, how much I loved her and still love her. But I think we can do better for women going forward. And I think we can do better for a lot of people. And times have changed. I think we can do better. And I want to do better for my mom and for my daughter and my granddaughters, and actually all of us. Let's look at this just a little bit together, because despite Jesus' confusing and difficult to understand teachings on divorce and on adultery and on objectifying other people, we are living in a very different context than Jesus was recorded and supposedly spoke these words, right? We've got to look at them more carefully, okay? Matthew 5:27-32. You have heard it that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Jesus is getting at the core of what we think about other people. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell, which was a literal place, Gehenna. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into Gehenna. It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. Jesus just sounds really harsh right here. But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. What the heck? We got to look at this more carefully. What is Jesus saying here? Because I think we know what people have done with these words, okay, and more. Look at this more carefully. This piece about divorcing on the ground of sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery. What is Jesus saying here? Is Jesus saying that divorced women are damaged goods because they have committed adultery because their husband ditched them? Is that what Jesus is saying? Because that's what it's been used to say. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. I think this is a large part of why my own mom really never, she had opportunities, okay? She's a beautiful, wonderful woman. But she never really engaged because I think she believed this. At least in the first part of her life. Is Jesus saying here really truly that it is a sin against God to marry a divorced woman? Is Jesus really saying that? It can't be. It can't be. I mean, that's how it's been interpreted, but that does not reconcile with who Jesus was and what Jesus taught. In so many other ways, that does not reconcile. I could go on a long sermon on how that doesn't reconcile with Jesus and Jesus' teaching. Jesus' teaching about divorce is just simply incomplete. And it's hard for us to understand. It's very hard for us to understand because he is speaking in a context where women were considered less than men. Sorry, I left out a word there. Where women were property. And we can't really grasp that in the same way that it was at that time. It's hard for us to even comprehend that, particularly in the United States, at least at least today. Who knows what will happen in the future? There are other parts of the world and other cultures where they may be able to understand these words a little better. But these words are really hard to understand. And so just taking them and sticking them in our time doesn't really work. Because unlike many Christians today who do just literalize these words and apply them as if they mean the same thing today as they did then, Jesus really did affirm the inherent worth of all people. Even so, people have used those words attributed to Jesus to damage other people and to keep them in their place. And that is not what God intended for people at all. Not at all. When we take the words attributed to Jesus or anything in the Bible, really, and try to modernize it, these words don't always fit into our current context well at all. Let me just expand upon that just a little bit, okay? There's no teaching in the Bible about a lot of things that we think there should be or there is. There's no teaching in the Bible about IVF. There's no teaching in the Bible about, I could go on a long, long, long list because it was written a long time ago. Yes, Mary, thank you. It was written a long time ago, probably mostly by men because they were literate, who lived in a context that was very different from ours. And so, even how Jesus' words are reported, because they were written down decades after he was off this planet, decades later, even how his words are reported may have been influenced by the culture in which they lived at that time. We have to understand that that was a very different time and place. And so it is worth digging deeper. When someone uses the Bible to tell you or someone else that they're less, dig deeper on that. Dig deeper. There's probably more to the story. Look at this. Jesus teaches in another place about divorce, and it's confusing again, okay? Some Pharisees came to Jesus, and to test him, they asked, this is later in Matthew chapter 19, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any cause? One of these times when the Pharisees were probably trying to trick Jesus into saying something wrong so they could bludgeon him or whatever. And he answered, have you not read that the one who made them at the beginning made them male and female? Do you know how much damage has been done to LGBTQ plus people with these words right here? Particularly transgender people. Do you know do you know how much damage has been done with these words? Are we sure Jesus said those words exactly? I mean, that's how they're reported, but would Jesus have even thought in turn? Oh, I could go a whole sermon on this right here. Think about how damaging people have turned these words into being. And he said, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and a mother be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. You might recognize that from your own wedding. Maybe, maybe not, if you had a wedding. But this has been used to imply so many things, including that married women no longer, and married men too, but particularly women, no longer retain their individual identity. This is why I personally have trouble with things like unity candles. Because you have your individual candles lit, and then you light this candle together. And then when I was young, it was tradition for the man to blow out the woman's candle. Do you know they still do that in some cultures? Once again, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. Tradition and biblical do not always align. There's nothing in the Bible about doing a unity candle and a woman's light goes out on its own. That's not how this is. Do you know how much damage has been done with these words of Jesus? And then he goes on. So they're no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Although, can I just say, I didn't put it on the slide here, but I don't think anybody can question how much damage has been done with using these words to say that you can't get a divorce even if your spouse is abusive. No, I don't think Jesus meant that at all. Jesus was kind. Somehow in the next part, Jesus gives a qualifier when it's okay to divorce your wife. Yes, I'm questioning what Jesus meant and if Jesus even actually said all these words. I don't know. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality, oh Lord, what's that? Again, another sermon, and marries another commits adultery. And he who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. And then Jesus says something that's really difficult to understand in our context today. You ready? The disciples said to him, if such is the case of a man with his wife, it is better not to marry. But he said to them, not everyone can accept this teaching, but only those to whom it is given. And then it gets weirder. For there are eunuchs. I don't know if you know what eunuchs are. Google it. Maybe don't Google it. Ask me later. Who have been so from birth. And there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Let anyone accept this who can. Accept what? All people? I don't know. That's what it could say, but if you notice how this is never mentioned in that passage about man and woman, these things are complex. This will have to be another sermon, okay? Not today, probably not in the next few weeks, because we got to move forward in the Sermon on the Mount. These passages, the scriptures, this is just another example of how some Christians take the words of Jesus. They have taken and they will continue to do so. Even though they're hard to understand, truly, honestly, they don't want to admit that. They use them to judge and shame other people and to somehow make them into thinking that they are less. And they call this the traditional biblical view of, of God's teaching. They use Jesus' words to hurt people. See, Jesus was speaking in a context where women were treated as property. And unfortunately, we see little inklings of that even today. Decisions about a woman's own body that she's not making herself is one example of that. Although Jesus all along and God all along clearly valued women. In fact, throughout the history of the Jewish people, women were to be treated as equals. Last week I went into this quite a bit. It's certainly not an exhaustive study of it, but a lot of information about it, and you can find it everywhere. However, the culture around them influenced them, and they developed this hierarchy that the world had, where people strive for position and power and push others down to get it, to get what they want. And as a result, women became the property of men. And in many cultures, that is still true. And that's not okay. Not at all. I want you to look what the Bible Project Scholarship Team does with this a little bit. This is an interesting article. Ben Tertine is a part of it. I love Ben Tertine and his writing and teaching. I don't agree with everything in this article, but I think it's pretty cool. They write this. He writes this. First, Jesus never gives us a comprehensive teaching on the ethics of divorce and remarriage. Nope. Second, he uses the conversation about legal divorce and remarriage as a case study to expose and rebuke men who demean women or treat them as objects. And I would say there are women who demean women and treat them as objects too. It's not just men, okay? How can a man who divorces his wife make her commit adultery? Does this mean that remarriage after divorce is automatically adulterous? It can't be. And he writes, and I've found this many places, this commit adultery language is unfortunate because Jesus uses a passive verb. The woman is not doing any action. She is being acted against. Let me put that another way. They put it another way. So this phrase specifically means that the man makes her to be adulterated against. And this is the original verbiage there. The woman in view is not being sinful. She's being harmed societally. She's being harmed. See, at that time, men just divorced their women for anything over burning bread. And that's not okay. She's his property. Is that messed up? Yes, that's messed up. I talked about this last week. Jesus is trying to work within the system that he is also trying to change. He's saying that you harm a woman when you just cast her aside. You have an obligation to people when you own them, whether you should or not. She's being harmed. This right here breaks my heart for my mom, because I think my mom felt that she was somehow broken or bad, or what's wrong with me that my husband would leave me. Luckily, later, when I went through a divorce, her views had softened quite a bit on that. She didn't think it was something I was doing wrong at that point, but she held that pain over feeling like she was broken for her whole life. They continue, Jesus' aim is to protect women who are being used and abused. I want that aim, not just women, all people. And he is declaring that life in God's kingdom protects the vulnerable and ensures just treatment for all. Did you hear this? He is declaring that life in God's kingdom protects the vulnerable and ensures just treatment for all, no matter what people tell you that the Bible says. God's intent is just treatment for all people. Okay? All of Jesus' teaching about divorce is aimed at protecting women from men who abuse their social power. You can find all kinds of articles about this. There's another one. I think Michael will share the link in a second here. But you can find a ton of things about this. This was Jesus speaking into a context that was severely messed up. And friends, we are living in a context right now that is becoming more messed up by the day. We have to do better. I so wish that my grandma had known that just because she was divorced did not mean that she was somehow less or rejected. Her husband left her. Either way, it did not make her less than less. And the pain that rejection caused her, and the rejection that my mom experienced over losing her father to that divorce and ditch, and then my dad, losing my dad to that divorce and ditch, the pain that she experienced over that did not need to be like that. She was and always will be a beautiful woman, a beautiful child of God. She deserves that. I am so thankful to be in a place where I don't feel damaged societally because I've been divorced and I'm remarried. Although there are people who occasionally question how I could possibly be a pastor because I've been divorced and remarried. Come on. No. But I want to move this further, because I don't think that it's just men at all. I think women are a part of the system too, that we have been ingrained in many cases. And like I said, there's a younger generation of women who aren't having it, and they shouldn't. They shouldn't. But there are ways, even subtle little ways, that men, women, all of us contribute to the degradation of other people, to objectifying people, to judging them and shaming them for who they are and what they've experienced in this life. This is a small scale, but this I ran across this video of Kate Winslet. Some of you are familiar with Kate Winslet. If you saw the Titanic, that's who this is, this actress. And she has come out lately to address the bullying she experienced when she first emerged on the Hollywood scene when that movie came out. The body shaming. See, this is wrong. And this is a part of what Jesus is getting at here in all of this teaching. It's not okay to objectify, shame, and make people into less because of who they are. And this video, this little segment from a 60 Minutes show recently, really grabbed me. It really caught my heart, and I want you to hear it. We might watch it twice in case you miss it, okay? I want you to hear this.
The little melted and poured into that dress. And, she just needed 2 sizes large, and it would probably have been okay.
I gasped at how cruel some of that coverage was of you at that time.
I know.
It's absolutely appalling. What kind of a person must they be to do something like that to a young actress who's just trying to figure it out?
Did you ever get face to face with any of those people?
I did get face to face.
What did you say?
I let them have it. I said, I hope this haunts you. It was a great moment. It was a great moment because it wasn't just for me. It was for all those people who were subjected to that level of harassment. It was horrific. It was really bad.
I want you to catch the beginning of what they say again, real quick here. See if I can make it run again.
It's a little melted and poured into that dress. And, she just needed 2 sizes large, and it
She just needed 2 sizes larger. She was melted and poured into that dress. You guys, that's a woman's voice. Come on, we got to do better. Now, this is Hollywood, and that's an actress, and some people say she deserves it. She got herself in the spotlight. No. I don't care who you are. That's not okay. These little things, even when we do that, when you and I see someone and we judge them, we need to really pay attention. Some people call these things like microaggressions. We really need to pay attention. If we're going to be followers of Jesus and people of God, we need to pay attention to how we're thinking about ourselves, how we're thinking about other women in general, how we're thinking about other people, all people. And when those thoughts invade our minds where we're tempted to judge or scrutinize or do things within that framework of pushing someone else down, we got to check that. We got to check it, and we got to be willing to say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. My mom deserved better.
It's a little melted and poured into that dress. And, she just needed 2 sizes.
We all do. Sorry, that was my mistake. My mom always was beautiful. You are all beautiful. We can do better. We can do a lot better. And so for women who are rejecting the Bible and Christianity and teaching, I get you. I see why. Because what you have been told, men who are rejecting it for the same reasons, frankly, all people, anybody, what you have been told that it means may not actually mean what it means. I don't believe God ever intended to push people down. Otherwise, why in the world would there be all those passages about justice? There just wouldn't be. I think those are constructs that we make as human beings for a multitude of reasons. Some because we're afraid, we just want to know our place, and others because we can be selfish and unkind and want all the glory for ourselves. So be careful when you hear of Christianity representing itself in this hierarchy of who's more powerful, who's more important, whose gender, whose skin color is preferred, okay? Whose immigration status is less. Do you hear me? When you hear that Christianity, friends, you need to speak the truth that that's not who Jesus is. And we need to live it. And we can. We can do better. We can all do better with this. And I'm praying that for the next generations of young women and young men and all people, for the next generations, we will do better. We need to push back against those systems that are trying to push people down and out and stand up for what's right. Mary, thanks for your comment. Yes, we are all God's children. No qualifiers. We have to do better and we can do better. We can do better for the next generations of all people. Because enough of being quiet while this bulldozer of, I'll say it, Christian nationalism just continues to ravage things. Enough. We need to speak up for the God of love. We need to act upon the God of love. Get involved. We need to learn the little and subtle ways that we can contribute better things to this world than judging or shaming anyone. Thanks, Jan. Thanks for your comment. And you guys, thanks for joining us today, for being online and for checking in. If you found this helpful today, share it with somebody. I don't need my voice to be heard. I just need I just need for people to know that the way things are being represented out there may not be the truth at all. I believe that God is love, and I think that love will change the world, and I think you do too. So let's keep at it, friends. Let's stay with it, because these young women today, I know why they're rejecting things. They don't have to. Love is still the way, and it always will be so, friends, all together now. See you soon.